Hi, this is Nina Lockwood, and I want to talk about grace under pressure because I think it is something we could all use. And I also think it's a secret that is, in a way, hiding in plain sight. That if we just knew that if we turned our gaze in a different direction, it would be there and we could take advantage of it. I've been having some really wonderful conversations with people recently about what's going on in the world and the tremendous amount of pressure that people are feeling. Nobody has any sense of normalcy anymore. And I think we've all given up on thinking that we can control what happens in our lives. There is just ambiguity, and there's uncertainty, and there's unpredictability in our lives. So that's causing so much emotional turmoil for people that many people will just do anything that they can to avoid being with their thoughts and feelings. And when we are caught up in our heads and those things are swirling around, they seem pretty compelling, but they don't have to be. I think that so much of what causes that difficulty is a very innocent misunderstanding about who we are, what our resources are, what our capabilities are, and how we get in our own way and can get out of our own way. This is what I think is really important and I want to share, is that what has helped me enormously is realizing that how I think about things has a huge effect on how I respond to them. And I know that doesn't sound like rocket science, and it isn't, but we forget that one morning we can wake up and say, yeah, I can do this. And then the next morning we get up and we think, oh my God, if I have to do this again, somebody's going to be in trouble. That's pretty common, right? But what it says is that our moods are changeable, and when our moods change, our thoughts about things change and our responses to things change. So if we are caught up in a response that is challenging, that makes us afraid or scared, to know that we don't have to go with that there's another option is incredibly freeing. And I don't use this word a lot, but it's incredibly empowering. I also think it's really good to know and to remember that we as human beings are storytelling creatures, right? We make meaning about everything that happens to us. What bird flies by us, or what the president says, or what the current state of affairs means for us. And we're really good at it. We're storytellers, human beings. That's us. We forget that those meanings are changeable. They change depending on our mood. It's really good to know, because if we are giving meaning to something that makes us upset or hopeless or confused, if we know that that's just one interpretation in the moment and that can change, I can change it. Again, we have incredible flexibility and power and ability to see new things for ourselves. And, going along with that, we are really good at imagining futures. We do embellish on the past, of course, and certainly often exaggerate about the present. But what we forget, again, is that maybe because we're so good at it, that our imaginations are creating scenarios for us that then we respond to, and they think, oh my God, because of what I've just come up with, I have to solve that. No. If something is being created through our imagination, through our thinking, we can create something else. We can create another possibility for ourselves. So I was watching a TED Talk that Liz Gilbert recently did on the pandemic, and she was very emphatic about reminding us that human beings have a shared genetic and psychological inheritance for resilience, for adaptability. And can't argue with that, right? If you just look over your shoulder at the history of human beings, you'll see time after time after time where human beings have made it through, who have gone from surviving to thriving. And that's really important to remember when we're at a low place, that we've been in difficult situations before and we can do them again. I think that a really good question is, well, what makes us adaptable? What makes us resilient? I think there are some fundamental qualities that are important to remember and or explore if this is something that sounds unfamiliar to you. And the first is that we all have in our core of our being a place that is home base for us, if you want to call it that. It is whole, it is unbroken, it is unaffected by not only all of the circumstances that we meet in our lives, but whatever we're thinking about them and feeling about them. That place in us, that home base, it's untouched. And it is where love and creativity and intuition, new ideas, it's all there. Important, so important to know that. The second thing is we are hardwired, we're built to have this innate knowing, whether you call it your navigation system or your gut sense or your intuition, that is a capacity that far transcends the intellect and what the mind can come up with. Because most of what the mind, the intellect comes up with are rehashed old ideas. And when we find ourselves in difficult situations, that's not going to be the place that we find new solutions. And part and parcel of who we are and how we're made is that we have built-in access 24/7 to an endless stream of ideas and creativity. And these ideas are, again, not something that we have figured out, but it's a receptivity, it's a channel that is always on. And the only reason we don't hear it is because we're listening to the thoughts and feelings that are distracting us. So I think when we know these things about ourselves, it makes it much easier to realize that there is this thing called grace under pressure, this ability, this imperturbability, a groundedness, an equanimity, an openness that is possible for us. And sometimes I like to call it divine assistance, because it doesn't feel like I've got it in me, but it's coming through me and it's available to me. And knowing that that is part and parcel of what is available to us, and allows us to do two things. One, it allows us to really go into rather than go away from our circumstances. Instead of avoiding them or resisting them, we can go into them. And when we go into them, we know we're resilient, we know we're adaptable, we know we have this inner core that is strong and powerful and full of love and wisdom. And that enables us to be curious instead of resistant, so that we can see what else is available to us besides our scary thinking or our anxious thinking. And it allows us to ask what a dear friend of mine often does, which is, what else is possible? When we can keep this in the back of our minds and bring it to the front of our minds, we become stronger, we become wiser, we make better decisions, we are more compassionate. We are able to have an unshakable faith in knowing that we will get through this, and you will get through this. We will get through it together. Thank you.